Bonjour, mon nom est Tommy.
Et je m'appelle Dante.
Vous êtes à l'écoute de Braillons sur une brindille, un balado où nous discutons du roman web en série la plus cannibalistique de Wildbow, Brindille.
Aujourd'hui, on lit le 9e chapitre du 3e arc, Lèvres scellées. Mais en premier, on a quelques annonces.
Oui, si on a tout bien géré ça et on n'a pas eu de problème avec la préparation de cet épisode, aujourd'hui c'est le 1er avril, donc le poisson d'avril. Fait que on va tout faire ça en français.
En anglais, on appelle ça April Fools, which I don't know if doing an intro in another language is the best way of celebrating April Fools, but we had to mark it somehow.
The other option would have been just do the whole thing in French and hope for the best.
Given how bad my initial script for that was before you reviewed it, I think that would have been a bad idea. My French is not anywhere near fluent.
Are you in a bilingual position in the government, or are
No,
you
I'm
English
in
essential?
English only. I am taking French classes with the government, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
at
I guess,
intermediate level 1, which means I could probably make myself understood,
yeah.
but nobody would be complimenting me on my on my ability to speak French.
Is the expectation that once you're done with the classes that you would be like a BBB for the Canadian government level, or
I'm not really sure what the expectation is. I think the expectation is to improve over time
okay?
and you know, at a certain point get to, I think BBB would be the minimum level for a bilingual position, but
Generally speaking, yeah.
generally speaking, yeah.
Cool. I mean, I know in IT they tend to be a bit more lax. It tends to be a lot more anglophone overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're not like client facing or anything. So,
Yeah,
but there's a lot of francophones working there too. So
I'm sure.
it's important to have the ability to communicate either way.
No, I get you.
Anyway,
Well, good luck with that.
thanks.
On peut faire ça en français si tu veux.
Uh,
Pratiquer ton français.
I'll stick with my my
Tried
my
and true
mother language if that's
Norman
all right with you.
influenced Anglo-Saxon.
All right, so let's get started with the audiobook description.
Yep.
Which is, brace yourself for the gripping climax of Arc 3. Honestly, this chapter reads just like one of those dime novels Cy keeps mentioning. It sure is a good thing they aren't in that kind of story, am I right? They'd be doomed. Oh, wait.
Calling out something that we have called out from the day one.
Yes, but, I mean, they got better.
What do you mean?
I mean, Cy almost died, and he...
Oh, I was talking about
okay
the
now.
dime store novelness of it.
Oh, never mind. I thought when I saw they'd be doomed, I thought that they were referring to, you know, Cy nearly dying and Jamie nearly dying in this chapter, and
Yeah, no, yeah,
but I'm way ahead of you. We'll get to that later.
that is true. All right, so general thoughts. I'm upset at you for saying stop at 3.9 and do not go on. So our original thought was do 3.9 and 3.10 and maybe 3.x, and Dante read the rest of those first and said we're just doing 3.9, the other two go together.
Yeah.
So I am left knowing nothing.
Honestly, this is the natural place to break. It makes more sense to group the next two together than to do it any other way. If we tried to do all three, we would be here all night.
Okay. This feels like a false ending, like that false bit of breather or hope that a horror story usually has, or or at least a slasher story has, where the monster's been defeated and everybody's relaxing and calming down, and then turns out the monster's not actually dead and kills someone.
It does feel too good to be true, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when you know there's another chapter to go.
Yeah, but like on the other hand, it feels final. You know, gorging itself should be final. But I mean, if she was involved in the creation of Gorger, she might still have tips and tricks to not be gorged. Or she, has her brain now in the jar and that's inside Gorger taking over Gorger. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we can get into that after we've summarized the chapter and know what we're talking about. But
So I also do want to note something interesting I noticed while reading that you would not have noticed while listening.
Okay.
So, in Sai's moment of panic, which I'm sure you know exactly which moment of panic I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about, uh, it random and semi-random words are italicized, and this to me feels like it really conveys a feeling of terror, of stress, anxiety, and forces the audience to pick up on random specific words.
Like,
Let me
is
go.
it random or is it like emphasizing the words that he's
Well,
emphasizing in his
it's
head?
emphasize it is, but the words themselves, let me go
I'm
back to
looking.
where we I couldn't. I mean, to stop thinking, to end her. She sounded so normal. Um, I thought when I saw one earlier that was just eyes,
Oh, yeah, I
which
see it here. The thoughts dissolved into a haze of couldn'ts, and the
yeah,
haze was an angry one, the pounding of blood in my ears, and eyes intense enough that I could see my heart
yeah,
beating.
like
Okay, yeah, yeah.
it expresses this feeling of confusion and it feels like this is setting up something that I'm going to mention later on, but it's setting up Sai losing his grip on the situation
Hmm.
just as much as he's losing his grip on his thought process.
Yeah, that is really cool. I do want to say that the voice acting in the audiobook was very good. Like, between Sai like boiling over and
Hmm.
Jamie like panting out
Yeah.
his various phrases, she did a really good job of narrating this. So um, it's good to see
Hmm.
that was
Coming.
essentially adapting something that was textual here.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So that's very cool.
And like, I want to note that italics are used pretty consistently throughout Twig, notably to denote internal monologue and
Yeah, which
thoughts.
is I think pretty
Standard.
standard in
Yeah.
Longbow's, well, in fiction in general, but
Yeah.
definitely this is something we've seen
Yeah.
in
It
all
just
the other stuff too.
here he uses it in a way
Yes.
that's interesting. Well, not that the
Hmm.
rest is not interesting, but uses it in a way to convey something beyond what it normally does.
Sure. So before we get too much more into the things that happened, let's give our summary so that we're all on the same page as to what happened.
Before we get into the things that happened, let's get into the things that happened.
You know what I mean.
So previously on Twig, Gordon, Mary, Lillian, and the scientists they are escorting have all been knocked out by a tranquilizer administered by the bugs designed by Gladys Shipman. Helen, Jamie, and Cy found a vial of gas containing a flesh-eating virus, which they hope to use to trap and or control Sub Rosa. Carrying the vial, they find Sub Rosa on the lowest floor of the bowels of the Academy, supervising a group of scientists who are excavating for something. That's true, we also still don't know what was being excavated. That's
Hmm.
a yeah. The scientists and then Sub Rosa spot Helen, Jamie, and Cy, and Sub Rosa chases them as they run away.
In Lip Sealed 3.9, Sub Rosa catches up to Jamie and smashes him against the wall. Jamie is severely injured, but still conscious, and distracts Sub Rosa by telling her about a non existent nephew of hers named Edward.
Wait,
Meanwhile,
oh,
wait, what?
carry on.
Okay,
I did not grok onto the fact that this person did not exist.
okay, we will talk to that about that right after.
Yeah, please.
But meanwhile, Helen and Sai run back to the other lamps to set up the trap for Sub Rosa. Sai has the scientists tie Mary's cord around Gladys's ankles and dangle her over the shaft of the staircase. Sai then throws the vial of virus gas at Sub Rosa, and she begins to ascend the stairs, just as planned. Sai tries to negotiate a deal with Sub Rosa, but unfortunately for him, Sub Rosa is not interested in what he's saying and goes straight for Gladys. However, Helen jumps down from the top of the staircase, pulling both Gladys and Sub Rosa down the shaft. Helen grabs the railing and saves Gladys, while Sub Rosa plummets to her death below, where she is eaten by Gorger.
Chomp, 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 chomp.
And as you said in your general thoughts, is this the end of Sub Rosa? Time will tell.
Yes.
But first, let's talk about what you were saying about
Yeah.
Jamie.
The Baxter family nephew.
Yes. So I will actually say I first started out putting in Jamie lies through his teeth about nephew. And then I was like, wait a second. Was that just in my head or was that textual? And so
Hmm.
when I was listening to through the second time, I found it was definitely textual.
Okay, 'cause I missed that. I've been scrolling quickly back up and down.
Mhm.
If I
The
search,
the quote that makes it clear is Sai thinking to himself, "How long before Jamie ran out of things to say, or worse, said the wrong thing, and tipped Sub Rosa off to the fact that he was lying through his teeth?"
oh, well, okay, that's valid. But on the other hand, if anybody would know all this information, it would be Jamie, and it would not be Sai.
True, but I'll
Sai's
give you
response
another.
would be to lie consistently. Like, sure, there's some evidence in that what's her face doesn't, um, the Baxter, sorry, that she doesn't react at all, which sure could indicate that this is not triggering any kind of memories in there.
Mhm,
But
yeah,
you say there's some
but
more
also
textual
when
evidence.
as soon as Jamie says Baxter, Sai says the pieces fall into place with that, and essentially says like Baxter is a believable thing. Everything Jamie's saying is believable. He's pulling from all this information and creating a story that seems plausible.
Okay.
Um, but it's not textual precisely. It's just implied in that paragraph that it's
Hmm.
not just plausible, but that it's plausible but fictional until a few paragraphs later, where Sai says that
He's lying.
Jamie is lying through his teeth. So,
Assuming Sai is reliably narrator here.
yes.
Reliable narrator, reliably narrating, whatever you want to. But yes, I agree. At least Sai certainly seems to believe from that
Mhm.
that that Jamie is making this all up.
Yeah. Well, the important thing is that Sub Rosa thinks
Yeah,
it's legit.
yeah.
Um,
I
so,
am Sub Rosa.
great. Let me just throw you off a staircase and maybe lob a few vials of poison gas at you.
Virus gas.
Virus gas. Yeah, it's not technically poison.
No,
Um,
it's far worse.
far worse. This goes beyond the whole like teaching kids the difference between poison and venom. This is like something
Yeah,
else entirely.
yeah. If you bite it, it what is it? If you bite it and you die, it's poison. If it bites you and you die, it's venomous. If you throw it at someone and they dissolve, it's a virus gas.
Yes. So the first thing I wanted to talk about in this section was the last thing that actually happens. It's Helen jumping down
Hmm.
and saving the day.
And Elastigirling it.
And Elastigirling it. So I pulled the quote of Elastigirling it. Um, Sai says, "If I or another human being had reached out and grabbed the railing after falling nearly 30 feet, I might have lost my fingers or my arm. But Helen was built differently. She hung there, she hung there, her arm a few feet longer than it should have been. A limp Gladys Shipman dangling from her other hand." Geez, I cannot talk today. um, and like, first of all, that is really cool.
Yeah,
But also,
absolutely.
I just thought like we've seen these beats of Helen being built differently
And
over
it
and over
pays
again
off here.
here,
Well, yeah,
and
because
we're
yeah,
just
I was gonna say Wildbow has been emphasizing it in different ways throughout
yes,
these specifically these past couple chapters with
and it's fit in so well with just getting to know these characters better. Um, so you don't realize that it's foreshadowing until this
yeah,
moment when it just pays off so beautifully.
yeah, because
And I just thought that was so cool.
if we had no context for that, it would just be absurd. But here it's like, oh, we know she's an octopus, so it
Yes. And like a few feet longer, that's a big deal. That's like
that's
doubling or
like double,
tripling in
yeah,
length.
especially for whatever like a 13-year-old girl.
Yes,
Like her arm must only be like I don't know. My arm is what like 2.5 feet long.
sure.
I don't know. Like just at a rough estimate, I have no idea. But
Hmm.
yeah, at doubling that seems insane for me, and it's probably more than doubling it for her.
Yes. Now I do kind of wonder if her arm would stretch under normal circumstances if she wanted it
Yeah,
to,
or
or
is
if it's just
this?
the fact that if it does get stretched, it will stay attached.
Yeah,
But
is this Ibit slap worthy damage, or is it just natural how she operates?
Yes, I personally think, and I'm pretty sure I put that down here, that Ibit is going to be furious
Oh, potentially.
when he finds out that she's been so damaged that her arm has been stretched out like this. Um,
Unless he finds out that Sub Rosa was digging up his super weapon under the academy.
well, yes. See, I feel like Ibit would get mad either way. He would be like,
It's his default
just
way of
because
being.
you saved the world doesn't mean I'm not going to kick your ass for it.
Hmm. It's just his default state of operating with like
Yes.
lesser
And si-
beings.
And since they were down here on official business, sent down here by Briggs, I feel like, he's not going to be able to take it out on Sai because it's not Sai's fault. But he's not going to
Well,
be able to
do you
take it out
think
on Sub
that's going
Rosa
to
because
let?
Sub Rosa is dead. But I think he might, this is something he might go after Briggs for. And he's like the only person who could take on like the
Mhm.
head of the academy.
Do you think, though, he is going to care about it not being Sai's fault? Because, like, he seems like the kind of person where blame does not necessarily get applied where it is
Sure.
due.
But like, in terms of people who are not at fault, I think that he would go after whoever is convenient and
If he
because
cares enough, also,
yeah. So
it's
it's
a
like
sense
if he's
of
mad and Sai is there, he'll take it out on Sai. If Sai
yeah,
isn't there, he's not going to go hunt down Sai
no,
when Sai isn't doesn't have any
no. Sai is a target of convenience, I assume.
exactly. But anyway,
Yeah,
um, I don't know. Maybe we'll see Ibit's reaction, but in the meantime, that was a pretty epic save from Helen.
yeah.
So that was very cool. I
I
like that
kind
a lot.
of yeah, I do too. I kind of feel like this Jamie section should go under Jamie.
Sure. I mean, sure.
Or
I think that the fact that Jamie got injured so badly tells us more about what's happening in the story than it does about Jamie's
okay,
character.
okay, sure. That's valid. Let's keep it here then.
Um, but yeah, you're like a lot of these things they go under both at once. That's the thing with a character driven story,
Yep.
which is you
Characters
know
drive it.
yes, but yeah. So the big thing that really like Helen and Sai getting taking out Sub Rosa is very cool, but I think really the bulk of this story is of this chapter is Jamie being injured and Sai reacting to it. Um, maybe we'll get into like Sai's reaction to it later in the character section, but I think it's worth calling out like just how badly Jamie gets injured here. Like I pulled the quote out. Sai says, "He looked at me, not at Sub Rosa, in the moment before she swept him into the wall. A swiping motion, right to left, but it had enough force to break him. 2 dozen individual parts of Jamie cracked and percussed against the wall, all in one horrible sound, before his body slumped to the stairs at the base of the wall. His book tumbled down the stairs, and it
Hmm.
just kept going, end over end, opening, carrying down, then closing itself before sliding down another few steps." Did you think that Jamie was dead in this
Oh,
moment?
absolutely. I absolutely did, and I'm not convinced that we're not there anyway. Um,
Sure. I
like
mean,
just the line
yeah,
when I put this down in the Jamie section, which is what I was saying we could move it there. Just Jamie's book came to a rest. The hardcover bent. Just seems so symbolically like Jamie is broken.
yes.
Like the book,
Like
which
damage
is the
beyond
thing.
repair type
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah. So this is a huge moment. Like back a few chapters ago when Sly nearly died, it was a huge moment, but it also kind of got swept through with all
Yeah.
of the action going on. Here it just stops everything and the whole story grinds to a halt to really feel how impactful this is.
Well, and it sets the framing for the rest of the chapter and like for size actions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I guess I'll bring it up here. I put it up in the size section, but um, I was just saying that Sai says I kept going only because I didn't want to slow him down by fighting him or lagging behind. In my heart, I knew it wasn't enough, but I couldn't simply acknowledge the fact, accept it, and carry on with the original plan when he was trying so damn hard. that doesn't feel like Sai. This dogged perseverance to make the existing plan work. He's usually much more likely to dodge and adapt and weave.
Sure. Yeah.
And I put the thing, who's the little bug in the box being shaken now, Sai? Um, but it
Yeah.
just really feels like he's reverting to what he has already figured out and planned because he can't devote the emotional energy away from worrying about Jamie to figuring something out now.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's big too. I hadn't even phrased it in my head that way, that he didn't have the bandwidth to devote to the plan anymore. But certainly it drives him. Like the rest of the chapter, like everything he does is just like, we need to do this. We need to do this now. Jamie's life is on the line. We need to do everything now. And it's just, yeah, it's just Sai's reaction to it is just so, it's believable, it's tragic, and it's great.
Yeah.
I'm good at words.
Yep.
Yes. Speaking of Sai's plan, I found it a little bit kind of confusing.
Yeah. Well, he's not operating at 100%, obviously.
Yes, that's true too. But like, so he didn't tell us the plan beforehand, not even before Jamie got injured. Um, but we kind of had this understanding that he was going to take this vial and
Hmm.
use it to
Like herd
herd
her.
her, like get her in a position and then kind of figure it out. Um, and I feel like he was really framing it as like, this wouldn't actually stop her. It would just be to buy them time while
Yeah.
they figured it out.
Yeah.
So he's still kind of doing that. And he's like, all right, he's getting Gladys for much the same reason. Like, it's a carrot and stick type
Hmm.
thing. Like,
Yeah.
Gladys is the carrot, the virus gas is the stick. You want Sub Rosa to come up the stairs. So you put Gladys at the top of the stairs and the virus gas at the bottom, and she starts
Mhm.
coming up the stairs. Great, perfect, easy. What was he expecting to happen when she got to the top?
Well, I think what he was expecting to happen when she got to the top is part of what he says very early on, which is, "I can throw myself at her. There'll be a spot, and she can tumble," which is what ends up happening with Helen.
Yes.
I think that was the gist of the plan: is get her somewhere so she can fall.
Okay.
But I don't think that's ever outlined. I don't think it's ever clear.
Hmm. Yeah, especially because when he does bring it up that way, he
He thinks of
dismisses it pretty fast.
yeah.
He's like, yeah, this would like stop her for like 10 seconds, and then I would be dead, and Jamie would be dead, and everyone else would die afterwards horribly when she continued on and murdered them all, sort of thing. So I kind of thought that he had just dismissed that whole idea. And the only other thing he outlines is this thing about trading Gladys for their freedom, being like, you want your revenge on Gladys, here's Gladys, and we're just going to leave while you're dealing with her. And I'm not entirely convinced that that was just a ruse. It seemed like a ruse, but I
I
almost feel like Sai was actually going
Oh
to
yeah,
give
I
Gladys to
agree with
Sub
you.
Rosa.
I agree with you, like 100%.
I don't think he would have done that if Jamie's life hadn't been on the line, though.
No, 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 no. I don't think he would have considered it. Well, he might have like passingly considered it just to needle Gordon and not like actually seriously considered it. Um, but yeah, I think the fact, as I said before, the fact that Jamie is potentially dead has
Mhm.
him unable to think as clearly as he normally does.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that case, it does make sense that his plan really is awful and
Yeah,
poorly thought out. And, um,
it's size equivalent of panic.
yes. Yeah. And I'm very glad, even though we didn't really particularly like Gladys, I'm glad that she didn't end up
Lose her
as,
feet.
well, just end up being destroyed by Sub Rosa. I mean,
Hmm.
as Sai
Well,
points out, they can give her new feet.
I suppose. I mean, it seems like the people who have new versions, unless they're at the very tippy top of the academy, are not super happy with the new versions of things they've got.
That's true. Well, I mean, the only one we've seen like that is Mauer, and his arm is pretty old.
Yeah, but I'm also
And
thinking of Patchy, who,
oh yeah,
they
that's
say
also
is
true.
a
Yeah, yeah,
point of
yeah.
pride, but still
Yeah, that's true. You're right. But isn't most of Sai's skin new-ish?
true itchy.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, fortunately, we don't have to deal with that because Gladys's feet are just fine as they are. We'll see whether Helen's new arm will be top quality.
Well, I'm pretty sure Helen is just going to, when she's no longer dangling, gonna whip her arm once, and it's gonna back into shape.
Yeah, that's probably true, actually.
Because I mean, do you think they could grow a bespoke Helen arm that does what it needs to do? I mean, I'm sure they
Oh,
could,
yeah,
but do you think the resources that would be dedicated to this in a project that the lambs are not necessarily showing the worth that they have, they haven't necessarily proven their worth yet.
that's true. But Ibid is very proud of Helen, so maybe he's got already like all the spare parts just in case she needs them in a closet somewhere.
She's got like j- rows of undecanted Helens, and he just
Yes.
pops pieces off to put on the living one.
That's how it works in the Academy, right?
If you're Ibid, it is.
The only other real thing about the plot here that I thought was worth pointing out was the brief title drop, um, which is kind of gross, to be honest. Sai is describing Sub Rosa and says, in the spaces between where her lips were sealed together, the lips parted, sucking in and huffing out breath, which is not a pleasant image, but
No.
it is the only
Title drop?
title drop, I think, in this whole arc.
It is part of what makes me think that we're not done with Sub Rosa, because that kind of movement is, sure, she needs to breathe, she needs to do all that stuff, but it feels like it's foreshadowing her being able to talk again.
Okay. Yeah.
Just in that, oh, she's moving her lips, she's opening up her mouth a bit, she's breaking free of the like shackles that Shipman put on her in a way.
Yes. And Sai does that say, I think, right after that, that he wants to take the staples out and make her talk. So,
Yeah. So I mean, it would be very odd narratively if that did not happen.
right. Well, I guess we'll see.
All right. So in world building, under the locations, I just wanted to note that all of this action takes place in the central shaft of the stairwell of the bowels, and I think it feels somewhat symbolic of a few different things. Um, it's this like straight deep plunge deep underground, and if you
Yeah.
do a misstep, you're going. There's
Yes.
banisters, whatever, but really, if
Yes.
you make a misstep, you're going. Um, and the way the interactions between Sai and Sub Rosa and the people around and Wildbow seems very intent on noting that the wall crawlers are still there, the buzz of the insects are still there, make it really feel like I put a quart in our notes with the insects and the wall crawlers as the crowd making the noise. But now that I'm saying that, I'm thinking more of like a duel with the gathered audience represented by the bugs, by the wall crawlers. They're like
Okay.
abstracted crowd noises, abstracted crowd movement. Um, and I don't necessarily have an idea of where this is going or where I'm going with it, but
Sure.
it just this giant deep plummeting thing frames all the action in this chapter, and that
Hmm.
feels important.
Yeah, it's interesting because I kind of feel like the staircase feels stark and empty to me. Like it's a big
Mhm.
void
Yeah,
abyss. Um and like the only like it's essentially like concrete and air. And so
yeah,
it feels stark and empty. But then at the same time you have, as you mentioned, the insects and the wall crawlers and the scientists milling about at the bottom and the scientists milling about at the top.
hmm
And that's the opposite of stark and empty. So
yeah.
just saying that, I'm like, that duality is really weird, but that I think maybe complements the confusion and just kind of like all over the placeness going on in Sai's head currently.
Sure.
I don't know. That just occurred to me.
Yeah, no, I definitely buy it. Like, it feels more so than a lot of the other spaces that we've encountered and inhabited in the story. So far,
Hmm.
this one feels important to the way the story is structured.
Hmm. And also, like, one thing that I was thinking of while I was listening to this was trying to, like, get a feel for, like, the relative positions of everything.
Hmm.
Because, like, trying to remember what floor everything is on. So, the place where Sai and Sub Rosa meet and the final defeat of Sub Rosa happens is on the 5th floor.
Hmm.
The bottom of the shaft is the 8th floor. That's 3 stories. And yet,
It feels
it
significantly
describes it as looking down, Gorger is a pale
blob.
dot.
Yeah.
And we know that this isn't just like little stories, it's like an actual big distance. But like at this point, this is like feels like an infinite shaft. Like it goes on
Yeah,
forever up and it goes on forever
absolutely.
down. And
But that's kind of, yeah, where I was going with that too. It's just we are it feels like we're existing in a small portion of, as you said, an infinite column of darkness.
yes. So yeah, it's a very dramatic setting for a very
Yeah.
dramatic uh, action scene. Um, I think it would a visual adaptation of this would be really good.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Twig so far has set itself really well for like an animated work, just in terms of how I'd imagine it being done. I think
Hmm.
animation is how one would have to go.
Yeah. But I guess what I mean is like a lot of stuff that we've seen in Wild Bow's works are quite cinematic.
Hmm.
And this story has not really been so much cinematic so much as like thoughtful and interaction based, but this is
Hmm.
really like
Yeah,
visually striking, I think, is what I was kind of getting at.
sure. Anything else you'd like to say about the bowels shaft?
I think I've said twice as much as what I intended to say. So let's move on to our monster corner.
So
Boys and
first,
girls of every age, wouldn't you like to see something
is that
strange?
is that going to be there, or do we have to actually edit it in? Like, did you save yourself the time of editing it in?
Yeah, I figured out how to get it included.
Oh, great, cool.
Yeah.
Um,
So the usual credit to Megafire and Danny Elfman.
yep,
Uh, carry on before I rudely interrupted you with that
sure.
clip.
So I just first talking about, we've already talked about the wall crawlers and the bugs over time, and we don't need to talk about them again. They're just there as an audience. But Gorger is here and is referred to as it, not a he or a she. And I don't remember if that was the case prior. In my head, Gorger had male pronouns, but I don't remember if that's just me ascribing them to them.
I don't remember either, and now I'm very curious, and I'm going to look it up.
Okay. Um, and secondly, I just feel at the beginning there, Sub Rosa did feel like a horror movie monster. She just keeps coming. She's just a bit slower than the protagonists, but that she catches up as they make mistakes or look back or do all that kind of thing.
Hmm. Yeah. I did find yes. Oh darn! I'm looking for the first part. Yeah. Gorger filled the other end of the hallway. He was a massive physical form.
Interesting.
He'd arrived at the worst moment, blocking our only escape route.
So interesting that Gorger is dehumanized here in his
Yes.
act of gorging. I don't necessarily know if there's anything more I have to say about that, besides the
Hmm.
fact that, it's happening in this act of cannibalism.
Yeah. I think that part of it too is just like the distance of it and the perspective on it. Like he's so far away that
But
you
he's
can't,
still,
that it doesn't look like
but
the
Sai
person
still
that is
knows he's a
Gorger.
person.
It looks like just a shape in the distance.
Sure.
No, like, I think you're right. I just think that there's a lot to it.
I also wanted to note that Sub Rosa ends the way she started, pushed down this central shaft.
Yes, that's very apt.
Bookends. And I also wanted to point that I'm not necessarily convinced that it's hostility that's driving her towards Gladys. Like, Sai seems to think it is, but I think he's wrong in that, sure, that we haven't, I don't think Sub Rosa has acted in a hostile manner directly towards Gladys at all. She's murdered her way to get to Gladys, for sure, but here she has her opportunity to, like, it. Sai knows that she basically has just stabbed Sai with her big ol' spike and knocked the vial over. Then she goes over to a perfectly prone, or not prone, but dangling, perfectly available Gladys Shipman, and could have stabbed her. Instead, she
Mhm.
grabs her by the collar.
Yeah, not to destroy, but just to hold
Yeah.
for now. And what she would have done after that, who can
Yeah,
say?
who can say, but I don't necessarily feel like it would end in murder.
Hmm. I think that that's a really good point. And I also remember Sai pointing out that when Sub Rosa catches up to him and to Gladys,
Yeah,
her expression is sad rather than angry. And he's surprised to see that. So definitely there's something going on with her that's
that's
beyond.
more than the
Yes.
murder machine we've come to expect.
Hmm.
There's signs of tenderness and affection,
Yes. So,
but we'll
yeah,
never
it
know
definitely
now,
makes you
right?
think. Well, I guess we'll see, but certainly seems like for all that Sub Rosa, um, we've mentioned before, Sub Rosa was supposed to be designed for answering questions and being interrogated
Mm-hmm.
after dying. For all of that, she certainly raised more questions than she's answered.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, we did point out the incongruity of, you're supposed to be able to answer questions, therefore your lips are stapled sealed.
Yes.
Which, again, makes me think that we're going to get a scene of her with lips unstapled sealed. Carrying on.
No comment. Um, historical references. So, historical references, again, not really references, but just a couple of little turns of phrase that I thought were interesting and worth bringing up.
Yep.
The first one is uh, Lady Luck is a fickle mistress. Sai says, I didn't like trusting Luck. It was a fickle mistress, whatever that meant. And I thought that kind of stuck out to me because just a couple of chapters ago, he said, therein lies the rub, which was a quote
Mm-hmm.
from Hamlet. And the Lady Luck is a fickle mistress is not a Shakespeare quote. And I did a bit of digging to find out where it's from. And it's just one of those phrases that has existed forever.
Okay, so the origins are
Are
lost to
murky.
time.
I've seen some attribute it to like the ancient Stoics. There's an anonymous 1745 novel called The Charms of Freedom that contains it. Really, the problem is that the phrase has a lot of forms. Like sometimes it's lady luck, sometimes it's just luck, sometimes it's fortune or fate, sometimes it's a fickle mistress or a cruel mistress, and get into translations as well. Like, there's no way of tracking down where it originally comes from. And some people are
Yeah.
like, it's not an idiom. It's just like a natural comparison to make, which I don't buy at all. But anyway, the whole point of all this is that I think it's really interesting that this is the second time Sai has used a literary turn of phrase in like 2 chapters.
And we need our 3-beat now.
Yes.
But
I
yeah, no, it is interesting.
I kind of feel like this is just like Jamie rubbing off on him.
Yeah, I would
Because
say this.
it's the sort of thing I would expect from Jamie, but not from Sai.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't feel like Sai spends his time reading things. I was going to say
Yes.
anything, but yeah, I don't know what I picture Sai reading. But
Dime store novels.
yeah, I guess so. He must.
But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. The other turn of phrase not this one wasn't even a turn of phrase. This was just something that I thought was interesting. So when Helen and Sai arrive back at the room where Gladys is and the others, he says, I pulled ahead of Helen, pounding on the door that hid the adults as I passed it. I tried to give it a cadence that would sound less like the knock of an immortal abomination of nature, and more like something people could open a door for. And I just thought this was interesting because a couple chapters ago we were talking about the shaven haircut knock. And we got a comment in the Discord from Singachi, who said that they used to do door-to-door canvassing and sales stuff as a summer job. One of the things my first supervisor told me was to always knock shave and haircut 2 bits, because the cops don't knock that way.
And, because there's odds are, if you're knocking on a billion doors, you're going to run into someone who is not happy to have the cops there.
Yes. So that never occurred to me as a thing that you would want to do.
Having been privileged, never having to go around knocking on doors.
Yes. Or to, be worried if there are cops knocking on our doors.
True.
So that was a fascinating perspective. And then Sai having that exact turn of thought, like, let's knock on the door in a way that doesn't
imply
intimidate and imply. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was an interesting happenstance, and also just an interesting fact worth sharing.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to note that Sai says in a confidence game, and I just want to note that we would just call that a con now.
Yeah, I only learned like a couple years ago that con was short for confidence.
You're abusing someone's confidence.
Yes. So yeah, I don't know if confidence game or confidence man is just like
confidence artist.
Yes. It's like, I don't know if it's like a historic thing or just something that is not used very often. Like, I don't know if you called someone a confidence man, people would be like, oh, what is this? The 1700s? I don't know. But
I am Googling etymology or history. Okay. A practitioner of confidence stricts history. William Thompson, 1821 to 1856, was the original confidence man, according to Wikipedia. Thompson was a clumsy swindler who asked his victims to express confidence in him by giving him money or their watch rather than gaining their confidence a more nuanced way. A few people trusted Thompson with their money and watches. Thompson was arrested in July 1849. Reporting about this arrest, James Houston, a reporter for the New York Herald, publicized Thompson by naming him the Confidence Man. Although he was an unsuccessful scammer, he gained the reputation as a genius operator, mostly because Houston's satirical tone was not understood as such. So the National Police Gazette coined the term confidence game a few weeks after Houston first used the name Confidence Man. That's amazing.
That's really funny.
It's like...
You can't communicate sarcasm through text, as they say.
Yep. Well, it's like, it's just how Nimrod has become, idiot because of Looney Tunes.
Yes.
Because, was it Bugs Bunny calls Porky Pig Nimrod at some point, sarcastically? And people just like, yeah, alright, that just means idiot, obviously.
Mm-hmm. But actually, it was, like, Nimrod was a mighty hunter in the Bible.
Yeah.
And he was saying, oh, look at you mighty hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's hilarious.
It's interesting how meanings move and change that way.
Yes.
So that has to be the stupidest scam ever. Can I hold your dollars? You trust me, right? Bye.
Even Sylvester is better than that.
Yeah. Speaking of Sylvester, do you want to move on to the character section?
Sure. The first thing that I wanted to bring up about Sylvester, like you mentioned before, like how his kind of original plan, this was even before Jamie gets injured. Sai is thinking of like throwing himself at Sabrosa, try and like buy them a bit more time. And I'm like, Sylvester has just had this near-death experience that we've talked about.
And we've just had this conversation about the near-death experience.
Yes. And yet he's still going on about self-sacrifice. And in fact, I feel like he's doing it even more since then. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? Oh, I'll just like throw myself at her and like sacrifice myself for the others. And I'm just like, are you still going on about this?
I just had a thought, and it's maybe not an original thought, it's maybe a thought we had previously, and that is just coming back, and I've forgotten that we've had this thought before. But do you think part of this self-sacrificialness going on right now is Sai not wanting to have to go on without the others? If his expiration date is later, he wants to die before he has to see the rest of them die?
Oh, that's a thought. I think we brought up the idea of it being kind of like a suicidal turn of mind due to like, not liking his position in like as an experiment or whatever. But I think that the idea of him not wanting to be the last to go, that could be a
Yeah.
possibility for sure.
Or like, oh, I know that I know how much time these people have left. I don't want to have that cut short because it's already short enough,
Hmm.
type of thing. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I don't really see Sylvester as thinking in that direction, but it certainly could be like a subconscious factor in what's going through his mind
Hmm.
for sure. The big thing that happens with Sylvester, of course, in this chapter is his panic, which we've talked about a little bit already. He says this is what it must be like to see red, and then he says actually it's more like blue green, which I thought was an interesting perspective. But I think he's comparing it to like he's comparing it to being underwater, I think,
Hmm.
and a sort of like calm, slow motion that happens and stiflingness that happens underwater. Um, and he like as you pointed out, like the italics and the sort of fracturedness
Yeah.
of what he's saying, what he's thinking, of planning, and also like I pulled the quote out of him thinking, "I want to tear those staples out of her mouth so she can talk, then challenge her, call her out, break the arrogant, insane bitch." I'm like,
It's a bit
we haven't seen him with that
attitude.
level of
Vitriol?
yes, at all.
Yeah.
So like this is big for him.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if I have anything much more to say about it that
No,
we haven't already said.
I'm trying to
Um,
think, yeah, there, but no, you're right. It is more emotionally raw than we're used to seeing from Sai.
mhm. And for good reason. This is like, you know, when he had his own near death experience, everyone else had the experience of seeing their friend close to death. But now
Right.
he's on the other side of that, and this is him experience like, oh shoot, like this isn't just like theoretical. This is like
This could be
right
me.
now. Well, this could be me, but also like this is my friend,
Hmm.
and this is happening now. This is no longer
Right.
schemes.
Seeing it
This
from
is
the other
now,
perspective.
yeah.
Because
So,
he is in Jamie's feet, and I'm not surprised, I guess, that it's happening so soon after the conversation with Jamie on the subject.
hmm, yeah, and
Yeah.
just like you bringing up the expiration dates just now, like adds a whole other perspective to it
Hmm.
because you know he has been thinking a lot about the expiration dates, but they are not for we don't know how long, but
No,
certainly they're in the future.
they're not. They're not about to be
Exactly.
like. Yeah.
But this brings it down to the present. Like this is like, oh,
It's no
my
longer
like
theoretical.
this thing isn't just like going to end eventually. It could end today. And that I think I think that more than anything is going to will have to have a big effect on how he approaches the whole situation with like the longevity of his group and his friendships
Hmm.
from this point on.
Definitely. So I also wanted to bring up that uh, Sai references persistence hunting as like a thing. Humans had evolved not to outrun prey, but to keep running. Helen wasn't human, and as a fine piece of craftsmanship as she was, there were trade-offs when playing to different strengths. I just want to note that persistence hunting, which is how uh, Paleolithic and even many modern hunter-gatherer societies hunt, which is basically find something big that you want to eat, hurt it a little bit, send it running, and then walk after it forever. Because most animals operate on bursts of speed and then they get tired, whereas we are built for endurance.
Yes.
So you just wear down your prey until it's too tired to fight back, and that feels like a Psy thing. Not necessarily on a physical level, but on a mental and emotional level.
To wear them down? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. I just thought it was a fun little comment.
Yeah, no, for sure. I wonder if he would think of it that way.
I don't know, actually. That's an interesting thought, I guess.
Like he likes to manipulate people, but does he think does would he think of himself as slowly wearing them down,
Hmm.
and would
I
he be
guess it's
okay with
whether he's
that?
contextually, sorry, like whether he contextualizes it as hunting or as like a debate or a.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
also true.
it depends on who he's speaking to. Probably, if it was
Hmm.
Mauer, then yeah, probably a debate. But if it's you know, I don't know,
Yeah, because we haven't
Percy.
really seen him in a hunting situation.
No,
Like with Percy, it was like they didn't even know who he was for most of it, and
yeah,
then he was playing against equals with Mary.
yeah.
With Mauer, he was playing against equals, and
There's
with
definitely
Subrosa, he was the prey.
yeah. I'm curious how what Psy hunting is like.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm getting a bit sleepy, so I apologize. I'm not as coherent as I was before.
that's okay. We're getting to the end.
Yep. I just wanted to note that Psy promises I'm stopping that monster and getting every single one of us out of here alive, I said. I'm going to try. I revised my state in my head, and you know what, Psy? I'm pretty sure the spirits will still swear you, even if you correct yourself in your head.
I mean, the monster is stopped, and no one's dead yet.
Yeah,
So
that's hopefully.
hopefully,
Hopefully Jamie's not dead. Yeah. And
yeah.
then
But
I just
no,
want
that was especially because wait, what? Like it was everyone else saying that to him. This goes back
yeah,
to him changing his perspective after seeing Jamie
yeah,
nearly
exactly.
die. Because everyone else was saying to him, like, you're not allowed to sacrifice yourself. Every single one of us gets out alive. And
Yeah.
now he's like, okay, every single one of us is getting out of here alive. And that's, I think, important.
It's a big step. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Um, I liked this moment where Sai is giving orders and someone tells him or asks him, "Well, how old are you?" He says, "I'm 11." I said, "Almost 12, and we've killed more monsters than you're even aware of. Carry her." That's like saying you're almost the next age makes you seem that much younger, no matter what. It
Yes,
removes
that's
any
true.
kind of authority that might have been.
That's true. But at the same time, this is an epic thing for him to say. Like, I'm almost 12 and I've killed more monsters than you're even aware
Yeah,
existed.
yeah,
It's
but like
it's like
the
you're just a kid and you're terrifying.
still would have been more so without the caveat of almost 12. Like, I'm 11
It's true.
and I've done more. I'm 11. I'm almost 12. My birthday's in 6 sleeps.
I'm this many.
Yeah, exactly. The line here, I felt a sickness roiling in my stomach, a feeling that refused to clarify itself, and just sigh, that's anxiety, bud. Like,
Yes, you're in the psychological department of the university, but I don't think they've discovered anxiety yet.
apparently not.
Apparently not.
Um,
Yep. Although I don't blame him for feeling anxious. That's
yeah,
perfectly normal in these situations. I didn't have anything else to say about Sylvester.
me neither.
So let's move on to Helen. We've already talked about her um, arm
Damage.
morphing
Yeah.
situation and being damaged.
But there's a
But we also
few.
got a. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you're saying the same thing, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, that's only a small amount of the many things we learn about Helen
Yep.
in this one chapter, starting with when Sai is um, seeing red after Jamie gets injured, and Helen becomes the voice of reason, and she's like, "Sai, we can't do anything.
Trust him.
He's doing a thing. Let's trust him and go." And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think Helen. often gets to have that role.
No, to be the one in charge, as it were.
Yes. Or the one who is being the sensible one. Usually she's
Mhm.
like the quirky, weird, like, oh, that's
Like,
like
I guess
uncomfortable. And
this is showing again how each of the lambs is meant to be able to operate in the roles of the others,
Mhm.
and
But
this
also
is
it shows how, like, uh, oh, what's the word? It's just like Helen isn't just like a one trick character. She's
oh
like,
yeah, she knows many tricks.
there's a lot to her, and
Yeah,
being responsible
is part of it,
is part of that.
and caring, and yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and she says, brave boy. She said she wasn't talking about me. It's like obviously not. So Jamie's down there injured, and he's still trying to buy time for Cy and Helen to escape.
Hmm. But like she could recognize that in Jamie.
Yeah,
Like as much as, like, even later Sai says like, oh, Helen doesn't have the capabilities for frustration or curiosity.
but I
She knows her niche and she sticks to it. But like,
that's
no,
so
Helen.
clearly not true.
Yeah.
But we've talked about this. This has been a repeated
Yes.
beat
Yes, we
that
really have.
Cy doesn't get Helen, and yeah, just does not is not able to understand her on some level.
And this is a perfect example of that, where she's
Yeah,
being responsible and she's being compassionate to Jamie and
which is not her niche.
recognizing what he's trying to do and pushing Sai to go with it. Um, yeah, no, Helen is great.
Yep.
I also liked when it this is an unrelated thing, but when she says that Ibbot hired someone to train her how to tie up people.
Uh-huh. And Cy's like, I don't get it. It's like, stay innocent, Cy.
Yes.
Like that's for the best for you.
But also very convenient in this particular circumstance. Maybe
Yes,
they should
of
hire
course.
someone to teach Sai how to do it, and you wouldn't, cut off people's feet in the
Legs.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought that was fun.
I did too. And then I guess we talked about this already. This segment, she says, "How fun!" when they're talking about using a bait. So something to bring up later if I could figure out how to word it. Yes, this was probably fun for her, and yes, I suspected she was worried for Jamie in her own peculiar way, which obviously she is, as we've already discussed. The nature
Yes.
and tone of the statement were at odds with the fact that we were in as bad a situation as we'd ever been. It's like, well,
Yes.
she's, you know, even different people, different humans process things differently, and
Yes. And also,
it's
yeah,
like,
like her reaction to the whole fishing metaphor to be like, oh, we're fishing? That sounds fun. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, that's very Helen, but it's not. Like, he's
it's
right.
not
It is
callous.
at odds with the fact that it's a shitty situation, but
Yeah,
like,
but
it's
it's
also
like,
very Helen to smile in the
and
face of danger.
what else can they do but do what they're doing?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, and it's kind of, I feel like Sai in many other situations is the one who is as flippant as Helen is being here, but here
Yeah,
because
that's
he
true.
feels it's a serious situation as Jamie is hurt and I am serious, therefore it is a serious situation. Nobody should be flippant, but it's
Hmm.
okay when I do it.
Yeah, Lillian.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
I do wonder where this is leading us, because this thread is likely not going to be left unresolved throughout the course of Twig.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something that, I mean, we've discussed it pretty much every episode.
Almost, yeah.
So it's definitely an important theme, I think, in the relationship
Hmm.
between Cy and Helen that will have to be addressed
Yeah.
eventually.
I think is there anything else you want to say about Helen?
No, um,
I think we
in
covered
terms of Jamie, you think we've
I
mentioned
think we
everything about Jamie?
yeah, when we talked about the Jamie and the plot section.
Yeah, um, yeah, because as much as uh, Jamie's injury impacts the flow of the story and Cy's um, internal monologue and so forth, we
Yeah.
don't really get much from Jamie after
Nope,
that.
not at all.
Uh, just
Well,
his clever storytelling to Sub Rosa. to
Yeah.
keep her distracted. And we'll see.
Yep.
Well, maybe we'll see how much truth or whatever is in it. I don't know. But yeah.
This just hit me, I think, that it feels like last arc, Sai was operating principally with Lillian and Mary, right? And Gordon in what they were doing with Mauer. Whereas this arc, it's the others. Am I misremembering the Mauer situation?
Well, I remember that I think Gordon and Helen had gone off
Oh, that's true. Never mind. I was
to do
wondering whether
something
it was
else.
just like, oh, we're doing the different characters this time.
I
But
don't
that
think it's
doesn't.
completely opposite, but I think you're
No.
right that like they're changing up the groupings
Mm-hmm.
for. So I think you're right about that.
All right. And Gordon is not really here.
No, though I did want to bring him up
Yeah,
briefly just
that's
because
what.
like he's so enamored of Gladys that even when he's literally tranquilized, he'll still wake up to protect her.
Yeah. But the
At
magic
least
words,
enough to be like,
Jamie is dying. Put him
okay,
right back
fine,
down.
you can do
Take
what
her.
you're doing. I'm like,
No.
I just thought that was a fun beat. Anyway, in terms of other people besides the lambs, I mean, we've
There's
got the scientists
who
we're
are,
milling about.
surprisingly reticent to lower one of their numbers down. Weird. They'd been told to follow orders. That's all they had to do.
Yeah, by this very competent, almost 12-year-old.
Yeah, just lower one of our colleagues down a pit. Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Sai.
don't you have confidence in him?
Oh, yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to talk about this chapter?
No. Um, like this was a dense chapter. There was a lot in it.
Yeah.
I think that if I were better at wording things, I could go on for hours about it, but probably it's for the best that I don't.
Hmm.
So let's go on to our discussion question, which
We'll leave active and up.
we will leave active. So we had our mini discussion question, which was, oh shoot, I don't even remember.
We are very prepared.
We're professionals. Actually, we're not even technically professionals at this. So,
Why? Because that would mean we were getting paid?
yes.
Wait, you're getting paid for this?
Pardon?
So wait, you're getting paid for this?
Oh, I'm not getting paid for this. Are you?
Definitely not.
Oh yeah, the project names. We were like,
Oh, yeah.
what would the project names of Lillian and Mary be? We've got a couple answers of that. We'll leave that open a bit further. But our main discussion question was the one Alexandra came up with, which is what abilities of the lambs would you want yourself? And I would like to hear people's opinions on that. So let's leave that open too.
And you can now add extensible arm to that list.
Yes. Very true.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Nope.
Alors, merci tout le monde d'avoir écouté. Nous espérons que vous nous
Uh,
continuerez. No? No?
we've done that trick already. Maybe that's too much.
Thank you for listening, everybody. We hope you'll continue along with us for this trip into Twig, which you can read along with us at twigserial.wordpress.com. And if you do, or even if you don't, please go to Wildbow's Patreon at www.patreon.com/wildbow and support him. It's how he can produce all of these new great stories and settings. I also encourage you or invite you to follow along with Claw, which is just now getting started. We're few chapters in. You can find that at
It's good.
clawwebserial. Let me get back to the home page of that. clawwebserial.blog. Oh, yeah, you are encouraged and invited to go there.
Yeah. And in terms of our stuff, you can reach us at totwigpodcast@gmail.com. totwigpodcast on the platform formerly known as Twitter, our Reddit thread in r/parahumans, our discussion thread in the Doof Discord. Kind thanks to them as always. And next episode, we will cover Lip Sealed 3.10 and 3.x Enemy. Yeah. And for our bio fact of the week, or of the episode, I learned an interesting fact. This is not as spectacular, maybe, as some of our facts can be, but it is relatively new research about cats, and everybody loves cats. They're the best, except for Sai, apparently.
Because Sai is a cat, and cats hate other cats.
So the thing is about cats is that they are small animals, and small animals tend to make high squeaky noises, and large animals tend to make low growly noises.
Which is a function of lung size and
vocal cord size, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. However, cats purr, and purring is a low frequency noise. And so scientists were like, how is it that cats, being tiny little animals, are able to make this deep, low rumble sound of purring? And the prevailing theory was that they would need to like contract and relax the muscles in their vocal folds in order to get that frequency of vibration, which would require essentially them to actively think about purring. They'd be like, all right, I'm purring now, and I'm like a very
deliberate.
It's a conscious action rather than an automatic one. Or I don't know. You know what I mean.
It's a deliberate choice.
Yes. But recently, as in last October, there was a paper released where they discovered this pad of some sort within the vocal cords of a cat, which are able to... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I can guess what this is going based on all of our previous facts, this pad, and in fact all cat larynxes, are actually a symbiotic parasite living within the cat.
As appropriate as that would be, unfortunately, that does not seem to be the the conclusion of this research.
So what is it?
It's just a type of growth within the vocal cords that allows them to vibrate much more at a much lower frequency. So it's not particularly exciting of a discovery, but it is interesting. Like, we've discovered, finally, after all these years of modern science, how cats are able to purr, and it's not through like concerted effort or whatever. It's just built in.
If I may ask, and perhaps you don't have the answer to this, like I know a cat purrs when they are content and all that, but what is the evolutionary purpose of a purr? Why does a cat purr?
I think I've read a few things about that at some point, but I think if I recall correctly, there are a lot of theories. So let me just look that up.
Okay. Sorry, I should have seen that and asked it earlier, and I kind of just assumed you would have that information on hand. Sorry.
I think what I've mostly heard is that it's about like healing, some sort of vibration to promote healing, but I don't know how true that is.
Interesting. This article that I quickly pulled up says cats are usually divided into cats that purr, Philinae, and those that roar, Pantherinae. No cat species can do both.
Yes.
Interesting.
These are the so-called big cats and not big cats. And that's why cheetahs, for example, are not considered big cats, even though they are cats and are big. Yeah. It mostly seems to be... like most of the sources I see are like it's comforting, it's healing. Here's one that says that it's to camouflage the sound of kittens meowing. But I think it's mostly just like there are thoughts, but there's not really any conclusions.
The one that I am seeing here says mother cats typically purr when nursing, for example, perhaps to reassure their tiny offspring and while in labor. This is the suggestion that purring might release a hormone in kitten brains to help them relax, relieve pain, or promote healing. However, I can say having a baby, having white noise around makes them sleep just that much better. That is what the cat is doing. It's a white noise machine for the kittens.
Yep. And if there's no kittens around,
I mean, it's just
maybe it's a white noise machine for themselves.
Yeah, it's a behavior that's been adopted into other aspects of cat life. All right, that is interesting. That is interesting that purring is subconscious, I guess.
Yeah, and like I don't know if I'm like using the right terminology with like deliberate and subconscious. It's like
Yeah.
More just like, does it need to be controlled by the brain, or can it be controlled by airwaves, sort of thing?
Hmm.
But anyway, new breaking research in cat
In
science.
the world of cat.
Yes. And like parasites, cats are top priority
Yep.
in
Well,
in,
they come
in
up
the
often
world of
enough.
scientific things that we care about here on Twigging Onto
Twig
Twig.
world. Braillon sur Brindy.
Yes.
All
All
right.
right. Well, that's all I have for today. So
That is also all I have for
thanks
today.
everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
See ya.
Right. See ya. Bye. Vous êtes à l'écoute de Braillon sur une brindille, un balado où nous discutons de... Let me start that over.